Trump just declared America's intent to acquire Greenland, and his press secretary is making the case that it's not territorial expansion. It's preventing World War III. She's claiming if we don't take Greenland, China or Russia will, forcing us into a NATO conflict we could have avoided. But there's something she's not telling you about this Arctic chess game. And what just happened in Davos, what President Trump just revealed, is game-changing. But here's what it means for you personally. If Trump succeeds, and it looks like he just made that announcement, your tax dollars will fund the largest territorial acquisition since Alaska, potentially costing hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay, we're talking about $708 billion. The truth is, your kids could be stationed in Arctic military bases defending our newest territory from Chinese and Russian encroachment. Now, this is like, we're going back to like a 19th century expansion tactic. We're discussing openly the purchase of sovereign territories. Okay? Politically, this sets a precedent that any strategically valuable land is fair game for American acquisition if we can justify it as defense. Now, Denmark is apparently rejecting the idea, but Trump's team is doubling down, and what he just said in Davos indicates a very different story. Now, the team is doubling down, claiming that this prevents future wars while potentially starting new ones. But with who? Now, speaking of taking control of your future, let's talk about something you can actually acquire right now. Okay? Getting older, you're getting older, I'm getting older. It's unavoidable. And one thing most of us face is joint pain. You've probably tried creams and supplements that promise miracles but did not deliver ordinary. Turmeric barely absorbs, but making it useless for serious joint pain. And that's why Dr. Josh Levitt worked with BCM95 curcumin, which absorbs up to 200 times better than regular turmeric. He combined it with boswellia to fight inflammation, magnesium to relax tight muscles, and bromelain to ease stiffness. All in Golden Revive Plus. I started taking it myself, and the difference has been incredible. Visit goldenrevive.com/NNN to learn more. Now let's go back to this Arctic territorial grab that's reshaping global politics. This is the twist the press secretary revealed. Trump is not the first president to try this. Harry Truman attempted to the exact same thing in the 40s. The difference, European leaders know Trump actually follows through on his promises, which is why they're panicking. This is not just talk. It's a coordinated strategy that's been decades in the making, and the critical minerals argument might just be the cover for something much bigger. And speaking of critical minerals, we have an interview dropping this weekend that you do not want to miss, part of our new national security series, where we'll be covering this very critical and underreported topic you need to be informed about. So this is the breaking news that literally just happened right before broadcast. President Trump confirming massive Greenland deal for America will be in effect infinitely. Confirming it. Art of the deal in action overseas. It gets everything we wanted. Real national security. The deal will be put out very soon. It gives us everything that we needed. Let's go directly to the president's remarks at the World Economic Forum.
The USA gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security.
How so? Can you give us some details, please?
Well, the deal is going to be put out pretty soon. I mean, we'll see. It's right now a little bit in progress, but pretty far along. It gets us everything we needed to get.
Will the U.S. still get Greenland? Will the U.S. still get Greenland, sir?
Say that convinced you.
Say it?
What did Mark Rutte say?
Well, he's a great leader. I think he's fantastic. The Secretary General was representing the other side, which is really us too, because, we're a very important member of NATO. I've done a lot for NATO. And it's really nice. I mean, it's a deal that everybody's very happy with.
Does it
Sir,
still include the United States having ownership of Greenland like you said you wanted?
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. I think it puts everybody in a really good position, especially as it pertains to security and minerals and other minerals.
Sir, how important is it for your legacy?
Have you already spoken to other European leaders? Have you already spoken to other European leaders?
Yes, I have.
How long
Which
will
one?
the deal be, Mr. President?
Infinite.
Did you speak to Denmark? Did you speak to Denmark?
Did you speak to Denmark? Of course he spoke to Denmark. He wouldn't be making the announcement. The people mocking the idea of U.S. buying Greenland don't know history. 1867, Andrew Johnson explored buying Greenland and Iceland right after Alaska. World War II, FDR took over Greenland's defense while Denmark was occupied. 1946, Truman offered $100 million in gold to buy it. This is the historical context setting up Trump's current push perfectly, because what started as presidential curiosity is now becoming urgent policy. Here's the president.
In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance.
Enhancing the security. President Trump knows what to say to get them on board. Of course, that's the art of the deal. Trump frames this as protection, not expansion. He's about to reveal what he thinks that protection looks like.
All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome.
Going to build the golden dome, and Greenland is playing a role. Trump's golden dome comments sound almost mystical, but watch how he pivots to the hard geopolitical reality. Listen to this.
I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark. Tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory. And hold it we did, at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won, We won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory that's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places. There's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries.
Nearly 2 centuries. President Trump's about to close that deal. The undefended language is key here. Trump is building the case that Denmark cannot handle what is coming. He tells the World Economic Forum that Greenland is part of North America, dismissing claims he wants it for minerals. He says Greenland is a critical strategic asset and says the U.S. will acquire it to protect against future threats.
Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory.
Trump's dismissing the resource angle completely. He wants everyone focused on the threat assessment he's about to detail. Here is the White House Post. Trump speaks on the national security interests of the United States in acquiring Greenland. This would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance.
In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%. There's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired. There's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance.
You know how it would enhance it? because they don't have to defend it anymore. They can focus on Ukraine, right? The White House is amplifying Trump's NATO-friendly messaging, but the tone is about to get sharper. Here is more from the president at Davos.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
We will remember. But how far will he go? That "we will remember" line just shifted from diplomatic to ominous. Now his press secretary has to come in and clean it up. Listen.
Well, they certainly should get behind it, John. And in moments from now, President Trump will be meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, a man whom President Trump deeply respects. And they'll be discussing this very important topic to the United States of America. And President Trump is right. Greenland is absolutely essential for America's national security in the Arctic region. And President Trump has a realistic mindset when it comes to the acquisition of Greenland. If the United States doesn't get it, soon enough, China or Russia will. And that's not just a threat to the United States, but especially to Europe. So President Trump is not just looking out for America here. He's looking out for NATO, too. And he spoke about that here in Switzerland today. He wants Europe to be strong. He wants NATO to be strong. And NATO would not be strong if not for the United States. So this is a simple ask by the President of the United States. Let's negotiate a good deal to ensure the United States can resume with a peaceful acquisition of Greenland. And he'll be talking with the NATO Secretary General about that in just a few minutes.
Hey, Carol.
Moving right along here, the press secretary is doubling down on the historical precedent to legitimize what just sounded like a threat. Here's more from the press secretary.
Well, the president always carefully resumes or looks at all options that are on the table for him as commander-in-chief. But today he did rule out military options and said, we're not going to take Greenland by force, but we are absolutely wholeheartedly committed to acquiring Greenland through a peaceful negotiating process. And so that's what's underway now. And I would just point out one more note. President Trump is not the first American president to float this idea. If you go back to President Truman, he also pursued the idea of acquiring Greenland because it is a good idea, again, for the United States and our national security. But I think the reason that a lot of these European leaders are getting a little shaken up about this is because they know President Trump is a man of his word. And when he sees to something, he wants to accomplish that goal, as we've seen throughout the past year. And he's been talking a lot about that today in front of not just world leaders, but some of the world's most respected business leaders about how America is back. America is not to be messed with. And President Trump can certainly be taken seriously on his word. Just ask Venezuela or Iran.
Yeah, she's trying to end on an abundance. If you don't even notice how the argument keeps coming back to inevitable conflict. Here's the press secretary with more.
Well, critical minerals have so much to do with America's economic security, and we know that economic security and prosperity is essential to a strong national security. And so I think the president is right to think about Greenland with respect to critical minerals and economic incentives. But of course, his main focus is on ensuring we can acquire this extremely important territory in the Arctic for America's national security and to prevent a future war. Again, if Russia or China were to invade Greenland in the future, the United States would be required to defend our NATO allies. And that's something, of course, the United States would do. And so the president is looking at preventing future conflicts, again, not just for the benefit of the United States, but also for our European allies and friends, many of whom the president has been meeting with today and discussing with. And I know they were all very pleased with his speech. I was in the room, John, and it has rave reviews because the president just tells it like it is. And he came here with his America First vision on full display, talking about how the American economy is booming once again through massive deregulation, an energy boom, the president fulfilling his promise to drill, baby, drill. You look at the tax cuts he signed into law, all of these things coming together to put together a really exceptional American economy. And I think he's really inspiring a lot of leaders in Europe to take that same approach. The Green New Scam energy failed policies of Europe and mass migration are failing these great countries. And so I think the president really struck an inspirational tone with all of them today. But of course, that has yet to be seen if they will act accordingly.
She's amazing, man. So the real bombshell. The press secretary admitted Trump ruled out military force, but confirmed they're wholeheartedly committed to acquiring Greenland through peaceful negotiation. This is not speculation anymore. It's official American policy. We're actively negotiating to buy another country's territory, and the justification keeps changing from defense to economics to preventing future conflicts. So here's your takeaway. Trump's Greenland push represents either brilliant strategic foresight or dangerous territorial overreach, depending on your perspective. The administration is framing this as preventing future conflicts with China and Russia, but critics see it as 19th century imperialism dressed up as 21st century security language. The critical minerals, the Arctic positioning, the NATO implications, they're all real factors in a complex geopolitical calculation that could reshape North American borders for generations. So here's my question. Do you think that Trump's Greenland acquisition plan is legitimate national defense strategy or unnecessary territorial expansion? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, check out the Next News merch shop for gear that's as bold as America's Arctic ambitions.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.